Go on, item 3 on your list of 2 items.
Well, it's just I've just put attributing success and then a little slash and common sense.
Are we talking about attribution?
Yeah, we are talking about attribution.
Go on.
Or lack thereof. Because basically, like, what I've come to the conclusion of the last week is
what I've concluded over
the last week is that data is rubbish. This whole thing about attribution, it sort of hinges off a conversation we're having.
Just explain what we mean by attribution. So a lead comes in and you want to know which bit of my spend generated it.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is the trap. Basically loads of people get obsessed with this idea that I want to know which channel and which campaign generated this.
Not
lead.
unreasonably. So we can do more of the stuff that works.
It's not unreasonable, but I think it is a little bit unreasonable. But
you can't be not unreasonable and unreasonable.
I think it's not unreasonable until you're educated about how attribution works, and then it becomes.
We were talking about the class system earlier, weren't we? You've just gone all hoity-toity on me there now.
But hopefully we'll get. If we ever get there, if we can wade through this mire of insults. A client that we've already referenced in this podcast, basically.
We haven't referenced any client in this podcast.
A client we have
alluded to,
that's the word. Basically, we had a conversation with them, and while talking through their sort of stresses around this whole idea that, you know, their directors were pressuring them and they needed the leads right now, yesterday, and all of this stuff, they were saying like, oh, and we're pretty sure that, you know, our old campaign was driving at least 10 leads a week. Or a month.
I think it is, yeah.
10 leads a week might be a little bit excessive.
Given what they do, yeah.
Yeah. To which I said, well, the data doesn't really show that, and sort of picked through the data with the client and sort of showed them that what the data suggested was that actually we had literally no idea where it was coming from. But like a lot of people who are sort of like just sort of dipping their toes in the water with marketing, they make that classic assumption that everything is trackable, everything is measurable, and that therefore, you know, when something suggests that my leads have come from PPC, I can absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt and applying any sort of common sense, assume that that's the case. And I think it's a really, really dangerous place that we've got to, where, you know, partly we're to blame, partly marketing agencies are to blame. This idea that everything is measurable. You know, we have analytics tools out the wazoo, thousands of subscriptions to various bits of kit that tell us important information, that we can therefore sort of take all of that information at face value, and that we should have access to it all the time, and that we can't make decisions without it. And it's a really weird thing, because a lot of the time, like we see with our PPC campaigns, you know, you can attribute it to direct traffic, say, for us, a lot of the time, because all the computer system knows is that time when somebody filled out the form, they typed www.redevolution.com, you know, /contact into their browser, went to our contact page and filled out a form, and the computer says without a shadow of a doubt that was from direct traffic.
Yeah.
And if somebody clicks on a referral link and comes to your website and fills out the form, you know, the tools will tell you without a shadow of a doubt that person had never heard of you before until they clicked on that referral link and filled out a form. So you should give more money to whoever sent you that referring traffic. It's such a dangerous thing, because it completely loses sight of the human element. It completely loses sight of the fact that, you know, somebody came on organic, you know, via organic search on Tuesday, but that person had first heard of you 3 years ago when they listened to an episode of your podcast, and they read one of your blog posts 2 months ago, and then they clicked on one of your ads, but all of that's gone. You know, we just sort of trust this stuff. We take it at face value. We're like, oh, well, you know, HubSpot or Google Analytics or Google Search Console tells me, therefore it must be true. And when you're talking about thousands of pounds of marketing spend, I think that's a really weird place to be. It's like you just sort of take it at face value, and we know that none of that data is necessarily accurate or true. And you can tie yourself in all sorts of knots. I mean, the client in question wanted to turn off our campaign, which is now starting to generate some leads, to turn their old campaign, which definitely wasn't generating leads, back on.
Because it had at some point in the past for some unknown reason. Yeah,
and because they thought, well...
it hasn't been for the last 3 months.
No, but the data tells us that that's what we should do if we want to increase sales. And it's just this weird trap. And it's really interesting, because I think I was talking to you and Stu about Rory Sutherland the other day, but he has this big thing about this, you know, that we've lost sight of sort of like common sense, because we're so in bed with the idea of, you know, big data and analytics. But it's, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, marketing is a human thing. It's about people's behavior, and it's ultimately about sort of raising awareness, building awareness, motivating people to take a specific action. And you can't necessarily look at any one point of that and say, well, social media drove 30% of our inquiries, so we should spend 3 times as much money on social media. It's like, well, last month it just so happened that a bunch of people on social media were really interested in what you sell, but that's not ironclad, I guess is what I'm saying.
One thing that businesses don't do either is they don't, quite often, they don't ask people. I don't mean like the first thing, hello.
Where did you hear about
Where about here? Yeah, I mean, some people do that, but I mean, generally
that
speaking,
also annoys me a bit, because I hear that all the time. People are like, well, we've been asking all our customers and none of them said Google Ads.
Yeah,
it's like, mate,
right.
Your customers don't know what Google Ads is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you ask somebody, where did you hear about us? They'll say the internet,
Yeah.
because that's how normal people think about this stuff. Nobody's
That's pretty accurate. The internet.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That doesn't narrow it down.
Nobody's like, oh, well, I first saw you in an ad in Instagram, and then I scrolled your carousel on LinkedIn, and then
Yes, I know.
Nice try.
But another conversation with another customer a few weeks ago, and it was along those lines, and about whether the website was generating business, and so there's plenty going on in the business. There's a lot going on, but we don't think like the website's generating any of that. So do you ask people? Well, actually, no, we don't. So, well, I'll tell you what. Let's turn it off and see what happens. It's even if the website only features in the process of elimination before somebody reaches out and either picks the phone up, sends a WhatsApp, fills in a web form or whatever. It is difficult, really, and that's why I think it makes sense to be the best you can be online.